continuing education. I know your team puts a lot of focus on training. And so how do you manage continuing education for the different positions within the retreat?
Yeah. So we have facials at our 3 locations. Let's start there. Facials is easy because Dermalogica has a good education program. We actually do offer incentives for them to reach their 2 different statuses on Dermalogica. So once they become certified in each one of the statuses, we pay them a big bonus. So it's motivating for them to want to continue to educate themselves on the product and continue to educate themselves as a skin therapist so that they're continuing to give a better service.
Got it.
On the other side, with massage therapy, it's the same way. So we do contract with the local school that does CE courses, and as a region, we actually did, if they complete this series of 8 classes 3 times, because that's you have to take it 3 times in order to really retain the information.
Sure.
Then we actually pay a $2,800 incentive bonus. So we pay for them to take the classes and like the CE course cost, and then we pay them at the very end once they finished it. So it's we want you to go and educate yourself and continue to get better and fine tune your skill, and then as an incentive at the end, we're going to pay you a little bit extra too.
Nice.
So it's big for them. And then the front desk it's coaching all the time. And recently I've got, like, my managers are all reading leadership books. So every couple months I give them a new leadership book. This is what we're going to discuss on our management meeting in 2 months. So
Love
you
it.
got some time to read it, and let's continue to grow.
What are they reading right now?
They are reading a book called Teaming.
Teaming?
Yeah, Teaming. And it's about how to deal with different dynamics and personality types in your team. And so this is especially important for the managers because they do have totally different personalities in the retreat, from the front desk to the therapist to the skin therapist.
Absolutely.
So it's important for them to know how to manage those relationships and conflicts within those relationships, and how, some people react differently based on their personality types or based off of past experiences. And so it's about how to overcome those types of situations.
I love that. And so necessary, I think, especially with you've got your service and you've got your sales, right? And every organization has that, and sales does their thing, and then the service, always says, oh my gosh, the sales overpromised and now I've got to deliver kind of thing, right? And you don't want that front versus back mentality or that sales versus service mentality. You want that continuity amongst one another. And so to your point, kind of understanding the different personalities and how to work with one another, and where am I coming from? Well, my therapist, the therapist is saying no because they've done 4 or 5 deep tissue sessions and they're exhausted. And meanwhile the front desk is going, but how come I can't get you to do another session? Well, they're exhausted. You've got to kind of ask the why and just understand where people are coming from. Tell me about let's talk about sales, membership sales. I don't think we've talked about this yet. How do you reward your key contributors?
So we have the standard commissions for membership sales, but all of our compensation plans for the front desk, like the LCs, the ARD, and RD, are all geared towards sales, and the end goal is revenue, right? So revenue is the one number that is consistent. It goes to the bank account. You know exactly what that number is. So basically everything is driven towards revenue. So my managers are paid their salary, and they get a percentage of revenue if they hit a goal, so which is whatever the revenue goal is for the month, and they have to sell a minimum of 75 memberships as a retreat.
Okay.
So then they get paid that. My ARD is the same with a slightly different percentage, and then the LCs are the same, but they get to split it kind of as a bonus pot.
Got it.
And it's a contribution. There's like a formula for that, but it's all geared towards membership sales, because we know that we have revenue at the end of the day, but if we're not growing our EFTs, it becomes increasingly difficult month over month to reach those revenue goals. There's only so often that you can sell $8,000 in paid-in-fulls to help cover up the gap, right? So we focus then on memberships. How do you get your active recurrences up? Because that's the one number you want to see to go up, because it should drive your revenue numbers up the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's how we compensate.
Yeah, because we can't necessarily help attrition. I mean, you're going to always have membership cancellations. I mean, there are things that we can do to help mitigate some of that, but you're going to have natural things where people move and what have you. And so we've got to be able to make up those cancellations in the membership sales. And to your point, look, if we're only netting 10 new members per month, we're not growing.
Yeah, we're not getting there.
Yeah, we're not growing. What is your target on net new members per month?
It kind of changes because it depends on the size of our retreats, because retention at Leon Springs, if they lose 30 members versus Alamo Heights, it's twice as much because they have half the member base. It's around 25 that we would like to see net.
Mm-hmm.
Anything higher than that is absolutely amazing. But
Mm-hmm.
again, the goal is they have to be selling at least 75 and they have to be hitting the revenue in order for it to pay out.
Yeah.
And we took from corporate a few years ago when y'all did the Founders Cup that was going around
Yeah.
each quarter.
Yeah.
We have a Founders Cup that goes, I call it the Burlington Bowl, but Jen hates that.
The Burlington
The
Bowl.
Burlington Bowl. But it says it's a peak performer award basically that gets transferred every month between the retreats that hit their goals.
So we got to meet about a month or so ago, you and Jen and Lauren and had a meal, and Lauren was super pumped because she had the highest elevation percentage. The retreat does, right?
Yes.
Like what is it? What's her average right now?
Well, she had the highest that she'd ever been at. So
Okay.
yeah, so Leon Springs chronically, for whatever reason, has always been like 18% elevations, and we're like 30, 30, 30. You have to get at least a 30.
Yeah.
And I think that right before we had met, her retreat was like 36%
Yeah.
elevations, and she was freaking out because she's never been able to do that, and it's been years and years and years we've been struggling to fight that battle uphill with elevations to get people to understand what are the benefits and how do we do that. And so, we created this menu of services.
Mm-hmm.
And it's literally on one side, it's got all the massage elevations, and the other one's got facial elevations. And so we integrated that into the check-in process. Did you want to add any of our add-ins in today? And so we put that in front of somebody, and they go, oh, yeah, this is great. Let me go ahead and add this. And so it's funny because it's only like 10 words on a piece of paper, but people look at those and they go, it's like a menu. And I feel like I have to choose something because you gave me a menu like at a restaurant. So I have to
Yes.
pick. And so they just do. And it's made
As
a huge
easy
difference.
as that.
Yeah, it's
Isn't
so
that
crazy.
amazing?
Yeah.
And elevations make the guest experience better. They give the therapist a little break to their hands, and hopefully it leads our guests to maybe a heightened membership instead of a foundation membership.
Yes.
So we're collecting more dues on top of that. So
Yes, exactly.
do you guys use recommended regimen forms? Do you have your therapist use the recommended regimen?
We don't.
Yeah.
We did a long time ago, and as we made the transition to paperless with digital forms and all of that, we stopped using them. But we put a big emphasis again on communication. So that's part of the new hire training. Our MTD, our massage therapy director, teaches a client care and communication class 3 times a month that any of our therapists can sign up for and take. And it's all about how do you recommend treatment plans versus maintenance plans, and how do you talk to a client in a session to get them to understand the benefits. How do you explain stretches to them? How do you explain they have to continue to do this more often, otherwise they don't see the health benefits? So there's a strong push on just talk to people. Like it's so difficult nowadays for people to talk to people, but it's like the one thing, it's like you have to do it. Like there's people everywhere, so talk to them, please.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. That's great. That's great. Let's see. How would you describe the culture in your retreats? If you could just short, description, maybe one word.
So my favorite phrase is people first. And my managers will even say that, like, we'll be talking about something and a therapist will walk into the room and they're like, oh, hey, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm like, no, people first. Because it is about taking care of them first. Because like you made a point earlier that you have to take care of your team first so that they'll take care of your clients. And that's exactly what our culture is that if we don't stop and listen to what they're doing or what they're asking us and then take care of it right then for them, what happens is over time they go, well, they're too busy. I don't want to bother them with that. And then things build up. And then one day it comes to a head and they're like, I need to put in my notice I got another job. And when you ask them why, they go, because you guys are too busy to fix the problems that I have, and all this stuff has been happening and you just weren't paying attention to it. And so I'm like, there's no excuse. You keep a pulse on the therapist and you people first all the time. That's your number one priority.
Good tip. Good tip. I think Nate Connect said he has a vow that he will never lose a therapist to pay or culture, I think is what he
that's
said.
What I said.
Yeah. So I think that's a really great way to think about things. When you think the average therapist generates about $6,500 per month in our system, and you have a gap in the schedule, it's expensive.
Yeah.
So to your point, people first, taking care of them, making sure that you're communicating, and that they know how important their role is within the organization, and that they're part of that. The goals, and that they know how they contributed, that they're part of a team.
Yeah.
Because I think probably with massage therapy and even skin therapists, it's probably very easy to feel like you're alone because you're in a room all day long,
all the
especially
time.
if you're busy.
Yep.
So as an operator, super important to have those regular meetings where people know just where they fit into the picture.
Yeah, and we do mini meetings with our therapists because having 93 therapists, it's kind of hard to put them all even in a room together. You
Yeah.
know, we did our Christmas party at a movie theater because it was the only place big enough for us to rent out for all of them.
I
So,
heard about that. That's awesome.
but it's hard for us to do that. So the managers do mini meetings with them in groups of 3 to 5 every single month. This is the promotion. This is what's going on. This is how we're keeping up to date. Here's a tweak or a change we're going to make here. And then I tell the managers, like, go back on a shift and sit in the team retreat or in the break room and just talk to your therapists. Like, I don't care if you waste an entire day sitting in the back just talking to your team and getting to know them and laughing and enjoying yourselves, because that's an important part of the job. They need to feel like they're people and not machines. And so you go to the back. I mean, Lauren's told me a million times that I took my laptop back to the break room today, and I was just sitting back there and answering emails and talking to the therapist. And they're like, "Why can't you just sit back here? Why do you have to have an office?" I'm like,
Yeah.
why can't you just sit back there? Why do you have to have an office?
It's true.
Go spend time with your
point.
team.
We don't need offices anymore in the retreats, right?
No, throw them all away. Throw them away. Treatment rooms for everyone. Yeah.
I love that. That's great. That's actually a really smart thing. Why, if you can work on a laptop and be amongst your peers, why would you just go sit in an office and have that sort of division, right? Or where they don't feel like you're part of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice if you have like a client issue or a complaint or an interview. It's nice to have a space like that, but otherwise, go be with your team. Go interact with them. The most effective I ever felt was when I was a retreat director on the desk at Leon Springs, because I knew the flow of the traffic. It was like being a food expo in a restaurant. Like, you're the person that is the go-between the kitchen when the food's coming out and sending it into the dining room. You know exactly how the restaurant's flowing. And so that's what I liked most about being an RD on the desk, was that I knew when the guests were coming in. I knew if a therapist was running behind. I knew if I needed to go to the back and help with laundry.
Yeah.
Like, it was being in tune with the business.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
important.
So super important. And so often I'll see, that retreat directors will just spend time in the office, and they're answering phone calls from back there or doing payroll or, whatever. But to your point, they need to be integrated and part of that team, front and back, and that's how you know what's going on. If you're not hitting your conversions, or you've got guest service problems, or what have you, how can you know?
Yeah, how can you know from sitting in an office?
From sitting in an office. Couple more questions. One, do you have any tips for other multi-unit managers? Somebody that maybe is already a multi-unit owner, and is there something that they should be doing to be more effective, or what if somebody has a single unit and they're considering another unit? What tips could you give them in managing that? Because I think sometimes people are scared to take that plunge. They're the day-to-day operator in one location, and they're thinking, oh gosh, how would I manage a second?
Yeah, so we went that way, right? We started with one, we bought a second one, we bought a third one. And so the hardest transition was actually going from 1 to 2, not from 2 to 3. So I think 3 is the magic number. Because in 1, you can be the point person that handles everything, and you don't necessarily have to put big systems in place to make sure that things run smoothly, because you can step in and you can handle it, and then it's done. When we took over the Bandera location, 2012, it was a lot harder because I had always been the person that just did everything. And so suddenly I couldn't be in both places at once handling everything. So I had to go, well, how do I train my team to be able to handle all these things? Well, now we have to put systems in place. Who's doing bank deposits? Who's handling customer issues? How are we communicating about customer issues? Who's doing membership cancellations? Is it everyone? Is it just the manager? Is it one at each location? So that was the hardest growing part, is not having systems already in place going into a second location. When we got the third one, it made us realize there's no other option. Like, you have to have perfectly outlined systems. You have to communicate on a regular basis. We do monthly leadership meetings, which is our manager meetings, and we go through all of our metrics for the month and set our action plans for the month. And then 2 weeks later, we do a leadership call. And I'm a big believer in Zoom, because I can't, since I manage kind of Dallas and support them from San Antonio, I can't like jump on a plane every 2 days and see somebody. So Zoom is a great platform because I can do a video conference with them, and I can share my screen if I need to, and it makes it easy that I can still get in front of all 6 of my managers at the same time without having to literally be in their retreat. So but systems are the biggest things. And then setting goals and sticking to the goals, because I think a lot of times people set goals and it's just, oh, I think that we can do this. But you shouldn't set goals based off what you're currently doing. You have to set goals based off of what you want to do. So, if you're currently seeing 150 prospects a month, but you know that you need to be at 250 or 300, don't set your goal at 150. Set it at 300. And if you fall a little bit short, that's okay because it's a goal. You're supposed to be striving for it, not going, I'm fine where I am right now.
Set the bar higher and create a plan around that. Have to have a plan. You can't just say, oh, I think I want to do 300 prospects. How am I going to do those 300 prospects? The plan looks like this from a marketing perspective, looks like this from a staffing perspective, or what have you.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. And then the accountability. You've got to have good retreat directors in place and hold them accountable to each of those goals. Do you guys manage your goals on a daily basis? I know you've said that you share those on a daily basis in the retreats, but let's say you've got a target for $1 million this year in a specific location, or $2 million, or and you kind of work back from whatever that final number is, right? December 31st, $2 million to January 1. This is where we're at. Are you managing the daily gross goals? So if your goal for this month was $100,000, and are you breaking that into a 30-day period or 31-day period, and are you adjusting the gross on a daily basis so that people know exactly what they have to do that day?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So say we'll use even numbers, right? If I needed to do $90,000, that means I need to do $3,000 a day in a 30-day month, right?
Yep.
Well, if I only did $2,000 yesterday, over the next however many days, I have to make up that extra $1,000 that I was short.
Yep.
So I have to go in and I have to update my goals every single day.
Yep.
It's the same with memberships. If I say I need to be at 75 and I only sold one yesterday, I'm going to have to accommodate for that. Somewhere else along the line, I have to sell more.
Yep.
So then we just factor it out over all the months. So it changes every single
Can't
day.
accept that we're just going to fall short. We've got to make it up.
No, not acceptable.
Good stuff. That is awesome. That's how I grew up in the business, and every single day we were held accountable. And if we didn't hit that number, guess what? You got a bigger number to hit tomorrow.
Yep.
And we're not going to accept 80 grand when we're looking for 90. So
yeah. I always tell people, try to hit your goal by the 26th of the month. That way you have a few extra days in case things happen, because it will. And inherently you'll have a slow Tuesday and you won't have as much revenue as you wanted to come in, and you couldn't sell as many gift cards as you want. So set your goals, but then try in your team to hit them a few days before the end of the month. So then at the last day, you're not ripping out your hair trying to call every expiring credit card going, can I bill you today, kind of thing. Make it easier on yourself.
Yep, absolutely. Keep that intensity up and make sure you're there early on so you can celebrate the rest of the month, right? One last question that it's just a little, it's not so personal, but I'm curious to know, what is your favorite brand at the moment and what makes it special?
So I went back and forth on this because everybody says, Chick-fil-A because of their amazing customer service, and Starbucks because of their customer service and the quality, and Apple, that same kind of thing. But I was sitting on the plane yesterday morning and I looked around and I was like, this is one of those brands I love. So I love Southwest. That it's so easy for you to book. They have a great rewards system. They take care of their customers, and it really caters to everyone. So it caters to business people because it's a pretty affordable flight. So, or it caters to families because it's an affordable flight. Like Southwest goes to Disney, and you know that those Orlando planes are full of Disney kids.
Yes.
So I just think that their overall values and what Kelleher put together with Southwest is just, it's head and shoulders, I feel like, above all the other brands when it comes to airline travel. So I would say Southwest. I
agree. We might just send this little segment to Southwest Airlines, and maybe they'll give us some free rewards or something. I don't know.
Awesome.
I mean, a drink ticket or some points. I don't know what. But I feel the same way. I fly Southwest almost every single time I fly. It's all hands down the first thing I look at, and I love it for all the things that you just said. But also, you need to change a flight. There is no change flight fee. I'll be here in Dallas and go, I'm not going to make that 6 o'clock, but I can get on the 8 and I'll change it last minute, no problem.
Yep.
I love that, and they're fun. They're entertaining.
Yes,
right?
they are.
They're entertaining.
Yeah.
So.
I was in a funny story about them. So we went to New Orleans for New Year's. My cousin got married a couple years ago, and we were in the airport on New Year's Day flying back to San Antonio. And there's this giant crowd in the middle of the airport, and you can hear everyone's laughing or clapping. I'm like, what is going on? So we stop because you want to pay attention. And one of the flight attendants or one of the customer service reps is standing at one of the counters, and you can see she's calling people that are walking by that look confused or lost. And so she's like, hey, come on over here. I'll help you. Come on over here. But she's on the microphone so everyone can hear it. And so people walk over and she's like, oh, you have a question? And then they ask the question. You can't really hear it. And she's like, all right, folks, what do they have to do? And everyone yells, sing. And she had everyone singing like some song, just whatever they wanted to sing
Oh my
for her to be
goodness.
able to answer the questions for
Oh,
them. So
I
like,
love it.
who wants to sit in an airport during layovers and stuff? And it was like
Yes.
fun and exciting, and she was making it like worth it. So like that's the perfect example of like their culture.
Yes, that's so great. I love that. Is there anything, this has been a great conversation. I could go another 2 hours, I think. And so we're probably going to have to regroup and do this
Yes.
again. But is there anything that you haven't shared today that I haven't asked you about that you think that people need to know?
Um, I think the biggest thing is this is actually a conversation I had with Brian Reid a long time ago, and he said, would you watch a basketball game if you weren't keeping score? And the answer is no, because you want to have a winner, you want to have a loser, you want to know what's going on, that you're succeeding some sort of measurement. And I feel like goals and tracking, if there's nothing else that you do right in the business, it's you have to be able to set goals and you have to track them and talk about them on a consistent basis, because it's not good enough to just post a number on the wall and go, this is our goal for the month. Well, how do you get there? Like, if this is the revenue goal, what are all the different revenue streams that factor into that? So you have to be able to make sure that everyone understands the different piece that they play in that puzzle. So my front desk can walk in, for instance, and look at the board and go, oh, we're way behind in products. What kind of products can we do? Do we need to do, 10% off today? Or do we need to make sure we change a display up and put something else at the front desk so that we're talking about it consistently? And those are ideas that they'll come up with, not stuff the managers have to come up with. And that's the kind of the motivation that you want from your team, is they need to be paying attention to the numbers whether you're telling them to or not.
Yeah.
So goals and tracking and talking about it constantly is like the key to success, I feel like, in the business.
Absolutely. I agree. Well, you have been awesome. You are awesome.
Thank you.
And I love this. Like I said, I could go on for hours. So we are definitely going to do this again.
Okay.
We've both got to catch a flight today,
Yes,
and we don't
we'll
want
do
to.
it for
We don't.
2 hours.
Yeah, we don't want to miss that. But thank you so much. And I know just talking to you, why your team is so successful, and you are such a great asset to not just Jen, but to our system. So
Thank you.
yeah,
I appreciate
super great. Now that you've heard from us, we would love to hear from you. If you've got questions or have a guest that you'd like to hear from specifically, or a guest that has already been on and you'd like to hear more from, or some very specific questions from, please email us at communications@massageheights.com. In addition, we would love for you to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And hey, talk it up. There's lots of good stuff here. Thank you. And as always, elevate the everyday.